You know, guys have told us, world champions have told us, guys that are used to fighting in their backyard like Bud has, like Jose Ramirez has, this feels different. It took me a while to get started. Bud is known as somewhat of a slow starter. How will we see things play out early on? Questions are about to be answered. Here's Tony Weeks with some final instructions.
Okay, right here is good. Right here is good. I want a good, clean fight. Obey my commands at all times. Above all, protect yourself at all times. Let's go.
All right, they touch him up. Let's do this. One thing that has been talked about a lot this week is the size difference of these two. How much will Kell weigh when we step in the ring? How much will Bud? Is he that much bigger? Kell's argument all week long, is all promotion long, I'm the naturally bigger, stronger guy. So we'll see how much of that size he can impose on the champ in Terence Bud Crawford. Christina Poncher and former WBO 140-pound world champ Chris Algieri here with you on the call. Thank you for watching us wherever in the world that you are as we get ready for our championship main event. This fight scheduled for 12 rounds. Terence Crawford in the blue and gold trunks. Kell Brook repping the UK in the white with red and blue. And right away, you see Terence Crawford starting in the orthodox stance, but he will switch, arguably the best to ever do it, between southpaw and orthodox. Fighting a lot more recently, Chris, in that southpaw stance, but here he is starting in the orthodox.
Yeah, I'm surprised actually to see him coming out orthodox. I expected him to come out southpaw. I think Kell Brook probably expected him to as well. There you see that jab from Kell Brook. He actually has an excellent jab. Uses it very well. Is very active with it, is Kell Brook. So that's going to be a big weapon for him, especially early on.
Sure is, and it's something that Crawford and his team are aware of, telling us in our fighter meetings this week. Terence saying, I see him trying to out-jab me and time me and continue to jab before me, but I have a pretty strong, pretty quick jab as well. We saw a lot of that in that fight against Postal, who a lot of people talked about Victor Postal's jab, and Crawford beat him to that. So we'll see which game plan prevails here, as the 1-2 of Brook is also a beautiful, a thing of beauty to watch.
Now, speaking about jabs, one of the big parts of a good jab is being long, and Terence Crawford has a 74-inch reach advantage for a welterweight, which is unheard of.
Yeah, and only a 5'8" welterweight.
Exactly, yeah.
We talked about Brook's resume, getting him to this point. Some people saying the best opponent that Crawford has faced, being that he beat Sean Porter to win that welterweight world title in 2014. Moved up to 160, fought Gennady Golovkin, lost. Errol Spence was his last fight at 147, lost the IBF title there back in 2017. Is he still a high-class caliber fighter as he was then, racking up 3 wins since that Errol Spence loss? Or has Father Time taken its toll on the 34-year-old and on his face, albeit orbital fractures in both sides, coming off the losses to Gennady Golovkin and Errol Spence?
Kell Brook doing a good job, landing some nice, hard, solid jabs so far. Has been able to out-jab the longer Terence Crawford in this first
There
round.
it is. There's another strong jab from Kell Brook early. But staying orthodox.
Something Kell Brook has to be careful of is a lot of times he overthrows his punches. Sometimes it gets tall, leaving himself open. Look for Terence Crawford to come over the top at times.
Kell also saying, I can switch too, and I may implement that in my game plan as well, as you see now, Bud Crawford going southpaw.
Yeah, we've seen Kell switch sides and find out the south position
nice
quite well. Good luck.
Lead left hook from Kell Brook in the last 10 seconds here of round 1.
And a good body jab.
Terence Crawford coming off the longest layoff of his career. 336 days since his last fight, which was December 14th against Mean Machine Kavaliauskas, a fight that he got off to quite a slow start and got tagged early on that fight, under on punch count output, and got hit more than we've seen him through the first few rounds of that fight. And here, Kell Brook coming off a win against Mark DeLuca back in February of 2020, so his second fight of the year. You see Carlos Formento in his corner, a new trainer for him. His longtime trainer did not make the trip, considering the training in the Cayman Islands that Kell Brook did, and he had 2 other fighters to get ready for the fight. As you take a look at some of the replays, strong jab from Kell Brook to start.
Yeah, good round for Kell Brook. Yep. Came out, found his jab pretty early. Both men kind of staring at each other for the first minute, but then Kell Brook was able to land 3 or 4 very solid jabs, as well as a good left hook to the head of Terence Crawford in that first round. You had mentioned starting slow against Kavaliauskas, did Crawford in his last fight. Kavaliauskas, who is a very strong guy and very powerful fighter, is not as explosive and maybe doesn't hit quite as hard as Kell Brook is. So Terence really needs to be careful in these early rounds.
Sure, and a lot of that explosiveness and power from Kell Brook comes from those legs. I don't know if you had a chance to see the weigh-ins, or you can probably even tell now he has an extremely strong base, very solid legs, and generates a lot of his power from that bottom half. So
yeah, Kell Brook always has tremendous physique and great conditioning.
Kell Brook has 27 knockouts in his in his 39 wins, and he has won 2 of his last 3 fights by knockout.
Kell's looking very quick at 47. I've been impressed, so far. He looks faster than usual. And he did say in the fight, this is my weight class. This is where I started.
Yeah, you're coming up from 135 pounds, but I am a natural 147 fighter.
And these guys had a nice battle, war of the words this week. It's been interesting and entertaining to kind of follow it. Although I would give the edge to Crawford in that sense.
It's really hard to beat him at trash talking. He's an ultimate competitor in every single thing that he does. I've spent a lot of time around him working for Top Rank all of these years, and I don't think I've ever met anyone in the world as competitive as he is. So
yeah, Kell Brook is, personality-wise, is definitely much more of a more quiet, laid-back kind of guy.
Agreed, but held his own.
Yeah, he did.
And is holding his own right now as we're midway through round 2, and he gets caught with a sharp lead jab from Crawford there, as Crawford has remained in the orthodox stance for most of the first 2 rounds, and then a good right hand there from Brook coming in.
Both men really sharp shooting at this point, going for tick for tack, very, very tactical from the outset. I think both men fighting with a lot of respect for the other.
Do you think that Kell Brook looks that much bigger than Bud tonight? I know size was a big thing that we talked about leading up.
I do see him being bigger. I understand him being a bigger guy. I don't think it's going to be that important as Kell has been talking about all week. At the end of the day, skills pay the bills, and this fight's not going to come down to who's the bigger man. Yeah,
that seems to be what Kell. Well, that was his narrative that he was pushing. I'm bigger, I'm stronger. He hasn't seen anybody my size. That was his narrative that he pushed the whole time. And
a little surprising, honestly, because I don't think he's the kind of guy who fights using his size that much. He's very quick, he's explosive, he's a good counterpuncher, he's a good jab. He's not a physically, demanding pressure fighter who's going to use his physical girth or size to push him.
And this has been a little bit of a chess match here through 2 rounds, but I think I was more concerned about the size when Crawford moved up to welter to fight Jeff Horn, because we saw what Horn did to Pacquiao, and we saw Horn rough, and that's where I was like, man, how is he going to deal with that size? But he bullied Jeff Horn. Similar to almost how he picked up Kell Brook right there. He picked up Jeff Horn and slammed him. So I don't feel like it's as big of a factor as Kell Brook and some media has made it seem, but we'll see 2 rounds in the book now of a good couple feeling out rounds there as we look at some of the replays from round 2. Crawford picking it up a little bit more here, but good right hand there out of the orthodox stance once again for Crawford.
I thought it was another good round for Kell Brook. He landed some good jabs. We saw Terence switch sides. He did fight southpaw as part of that round, but for the most part, I feel that Brook was busier, got a little bit more done. I would lean towards Brook in that round as well.
Round 3 scheduled for 12. Christina Poncher and Chris Algieri here with you. Our main event of the evening, pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the world. ESPN's pound for pound #1. Terence Crawford against Kell Brook.
Now, if you notice, we got a great view right here looking at the feet. We're seeing a southpaw orthodox, and you're seeing both men battling for that outside position. That's very, very important when you are fighting an opposite stance, to make sure that you have the outside position. That's the dominant position when you're fighting an opposite stance. See that what happened just there. Kell Brook pulling back with his chin up in the air. That's where he really needs to be careful with the reach and the timing of Terence Crawford as you're pulling away.
Crawford giving him a different look here, starting this round for the first time in the fight as a southpaw. The first 2 rounds were as orthodox as you take a look at some of the punch stats. A 36% clip landed for Kell Brook. About the same amount of punches thrown there. And that right strong hand jab from Crawford in this southpaw position is where he's very comfortable with that. His strongest hand out in front as you see him throw it there to the body and then doubling it up back up top.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be way more comfortable out fighting at that southpaw stance. We've seen it more in recent years, him starting fights from that, fighting entire fights out of the southpaw position.
Which is why I'm surprised he's always still listed as an orthodox fighter, because as of late, just to your point, he's done so much work. If you kind of logged the minutes, I know CompuBox doesn't keep track of those things, they keep track of punches, but I think it's fair to say more as a southpaw than an orthodox. But
yeah, I think at this point, if we were going to check the residency of his righty versus southpaw, I think you're right. I think he probably
hands-free.
Southpaw at this point.
Stop, I got you.
And for an opponent, Chris, what kind of challenges does that pose, especially in your preparation? I mean, you're trying to bring in guys that have both stances. You're trying to make adjustments on the fly in the ring.
Well, that's the thing about training camp. You have a finite amount of time to work on specifics for the craft, for the actual fight in front of you. So with Terence Crawford, you have to prepare for 2 guys. You know, so it makes it that much more difficult.
2 nice right hands there from Kell Brook.
Things starting to heat up here in round number 3.
Terence Crawford in the States before the bell, a minus 1,100 underdog, meaning you'd have to bet $1,100 on Terence Crawford to win 100. Chris and I were talking about, you know, earlier in the week, it was 7-to-1 odds. We were like, wow, I can't believe Brook is that much of an underdog. He doesn't look it here yet through 3 rounds, but Crawford's starting to get his respect. That strong right jab, having some success here in round 3 in that, southpaw position.
For the people at home, they might not think a whole lot is going on, but there's a tremendous amount of tactical work from both men right now.
Nice right hand there from Brook and a counter from Bud.
All these shifts and movements and feints.
Big right hand from Crawford at the 10-second mark in round 3. Things are heating up here. Nice combination from Crawford. Then he goes down to the body as we see things start to turn up here a little bit.
And
that was a strong finish to round 3, something that is very important to, in your opinion, Chris, as we call these fights, in the eyes of the judges, to make an exclamation point there at the end of a round.
Yeah, that was a much better round for Crawford. I think he was much more comfortable letting his hands go from the southpaw position, finished the round strong, and some of those defensive weaknesses that I've seen in Brook in the past started to show up a little bit in that round, getting tall on the inside, picking his chin up in the air, right just there. Like that.
Exactly.
Very dangerous thing to do when you got a puncher like Terence Crawford in front of you, who throws punches from such strange angles and generates power. Yeah, I was excited for this fight. I did a lot of homework reviewing tape. You know, and I did see a number of things that Kell Brook does that actually falls right into the hands of Terence Crawford. I was hoping that he was going to come in here understanding that. Seems like he has so far, but as the rounds go on, more of who you are starts to show up.
Back in the southpaw stance as he started round 3. Again here in round 4, there's a minor little swelling abrasion on the right eye of Crawford as he gets tagged, as I say that, by a left hand of Kell Brook.
Their heads sliced together at some point too. I think both.
And maybe that was caused by that clash of heads. Here we go again. Kell Brook, the rope, hold him up. Big shot from Crawford.
5,
and
6,
that is a knockdown.
7, 8. Come in, man. You all right? Give you a chance.
And Kell Brook looks like he is still a little bit out of it. Kept Crawford in the show in round 4.
I think it was a right hook as
Crawford looks to finish. Big shot from Kell Brook. He is over. Terence Bud Crawford, TKO 4. That's all she wrote, folks. He remains undefeated and walks away with the strap. And you know what? That shows me right there, I did exactly what I came here to do. His family excited, his family celebrating. Omaha, Nebraska, stand up. But he comes over, shows respect to Kell Brook. No problems with the stoppage there, Chris.
I thought it was a little early, but, I mean, it was probably what was going to happen anyway. I'm sure Kell Brook will probably agree, but, I mean, he was very hurt. The first right hook, he didn't see it at all. I think they traded right hands. Kell Brook nearly fell through the ropes in the first shot. Wasn't really recovered after the 8 count.
He said, what happened? He just said, what happened there?
He did not see that first right hook.
Did he hit me with the shot? He doesn't even know what happened right now.
The shot you don't see is the one that hurts you the most.
Yep, he just
Kell
asked
Brook
what
did
happened.
not see that shot.
What did he hit me with? What was the
right
shot?
Hook. I think it was a right hook.
And we'll show it to you. We'll run it back. But, I mean, he started to turn it up there in round 3. Came with a big shot in round 4. And Kell Brook didn't recover. And referee Tony Weeks stepped in and stopped the fight. As you see his aunt, sisters, mother, girlfriend, grandmother all made the trip and excited to see Terence Bud Crawford improve his record now to 37-0 with 28 KOs. There's something to be said, too, about making a statement, getting there and taking care of business. And I think we thought the first half of the fight was going to be interesting. We were through 5-6 rounds, and then maybe we were going to see Bud turn it on. But, I mean, round 4, TKO.
I mean, the first 3 rounds were a very nip-tuck affair. I had Brook ahead 2 rounds to 1. But Crawford, man, like I said, when you got a guy with that kind of power and that kind of dangerous punching, those little defensive mistakes that I was saying were starting to show up.
And there's nothing you can say bad about what Terence Crawford just did. You can say that Brook's not the same, that Brook is not the same kind of guy, but then Terence goes in there and does exactly what he should do in that sense.
Well, it's a statement win. It's not just getting the win. It's not just beating the guy. It's doing it in such an amazing fashion that it's a real statement. And when we look at the numbers, you know, he landed some more punches. Somewhat even, but the power punches were really the different. Brook didn't really land anything other than the jab.
There wasn't the initial shot there, but that was the stoppage. Here we go. And there's that right hand that just...
That was a jab.
Shin checked him, just the right hand.
Hard jab.
That's it. And then he comes in to finish him. And that was the one that they let him continue. Boom.
Yeah, so remember what I said about Kell Brook, how when sometimes he overthrows his punches and really comes forward and gets tall? That's exactly what happened. He was throwing his right hand, Bud threw his jab over the top, and they ran full steam ahead into each other. And then we got...
And he got a couple licks in, too, before Tony Weeks ran over there.
Yeah, he threw some nasty shots there. And here we see the end. Bunch of left hands, a right hook really started, and then Tony Weeks steps in to a covered Kell Brook. Not much. He did ask what happened.
There's that big right hand, probably the last blow in that last exchange. And after that, I mean, Kell Brook was just...
I don't think Brook understood how long his arms were. You know, leaning back that way, he thought he was safe, but the right hook came over the top. Look, he pulls away, he thinks he's safe, bang. Gets hit with that right hook, couple left hands.
And you still think it's premature looking at the replays now? Yeah,
I do.
Okay.
I do. I would say, you know, Brook would have been smarter to hold or even go down there, but, you know, I probably wasn't going to make a difference. Almost definitely wasn't going to make a difference, but...
And that is a bad man right there. He closed the show, and now at welterweight, he has knocked out every opponent since moving up to 147. Every single one of them.
Obviously, this is where, you know, his body wants to be. He's been stronger at the heavier weights, and he's even talked, he mentioned in the fighter meeting yesterday about fighting at 154. You know, we know he gets heavy in between fights. He said he made this easy, but, you know, his body likes this weight.
Ladies and gentlemen, here inside MGM Grand, referee Tony Weeks calls a halt to this bout at 1 minute, 14 seconds of round number 4. Declaring your winner by technical knockout, and still WBO welterweight champion of the world, Terence Bud Crawford.
And still undefeated, Terence Bud Crawford taking that belt back to Omaha, Nebraska, improving his record to 37-0 with 28 KOs. And can we please get a marquee big signature matchup in 2021? He is begging for it. The boxing world is begging for it. And I really hope that if we just keep putting it out in the atmosphere, it will happen. But